Okay, welcome to the meeting.
Just for tomorrow's discussion.
Welcome to the meeting of March 20th, 2023. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. We want to recognize that we're on the traditional lands of the Coast Salish people, and in particular, our neighbors, the Shiano First Nations and the Sook First Nations. I would like to call the meeting to order, and could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Any comments? No, seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimous. Thank you. Okay, presentations. We have no presentations this evening, but we do have public participation. We have 4 minutes allowed per person. If you could state your name and the street you live on, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name's Gary Smurfoot, and I live on Gilbert Drive. I'm here tonight because I have put a letter, a report, a memo, whatever you want to call it, on the use of the buffer lands as a stormwater management area for a Langford development. It's the last item on your agenda tonight. It's under correspondence. And I'm asking that you please don't just receive it and file it. Look at it, try to understand it. What I'm trying to achieve by bringing this to council and to staff and the public's attention are some of the concerns that I see in reading these documents and speaking with residents of our community. Hopefully that correspondence will get some action. I hope that by now all members of council and concerned staff have carefully read the 2017 draft easement, which I assume is placed on the buffer land titles. This is a section 219 covenant concerning stormwater management to deal with the increased runoff from the adjacent lands in Langford. There is also a statement of conditions that the District of Langford has prepared in regards to that subdivision. I trust that you've received that as well. It's an interesting document. It's not just for the full 344, but for the first phase, which is 44 lots. What I'm asking here tonight is that Metchosin, firstly, obtain a concise legal opinion as to our rights and responsibilities in regards to the stormwater management covenant. I'm also requesting that Langford and the developer add Metchosin to their list of correspondence when there are stormwater issues being presented for this development. That is, when there's correspondence, I'm asking that Metchosin ask them to CC us when there's correspondence going back and forth between those two parties on the stormwater management, because we're the downstream recipient of it to some degree. I'm requesting that you ask Langford and the developer to contact your staff, so that the desires and standards from this community for an environmentally suitable stormwater system can be incorporated into the construction approved by Metchosin. Now, item 10 of that covenant states clearly that all Metchosin approvals are to be in writing from the CAO, not from staff, other staff, not from our consulting engineer. They're to be from the CAO, okay? I'm sorry I sound like I'm lecturing. I apologize in that regards. But the biggest concern, maybe not the biggest concern, but a big concern is when this is all said and done, if and when they build all those lots and the developer leaves the scene, how do you, the District of Metchosin, expect you're going to deal with any maintenance or operation issues of the buffer land stormwater management system? The developer's gone. Your contractual relationship is between the District of Metchosin and the owners of the lands. Today, the owner of the lands is a developer. Tomorrow, it's Joe and Mary and Ann and Sue. It's not the District of Langford. Again, this goes back to the legal opinion. I think it would be incumbent on you, as I say in the detailed correspondence, to see if somehow you can get that clause changed and the District of Langford put in as a responsible party. I presented a solution for them to collect their money for it. The correspondence has the reasoning and details of my concerns there. I'll leave it at that. I think my time is probably up. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Gary.
Selby Saluk, Neff Road, Mayor Little and councillors. I wish to make a comment about two issues of recent importance. The first of these has to do with the District of Metchosin Climate Action Survey that I believe is to be submitted by March 23rd. As the author or creator of the survey is not stated, I would assume that either the consultant PINA or district staff were tasked with coming up with the survey questions, and that Councillor Gray, as the head of the Environment and Natural Areas portfolio, would have final oversight before going public for resident input. When reading through the survey initially, I was struck by some glaring omissions. I remember Councillor Gray stating at a previous meeting that the PINA report was heavily weighted toward reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and I expected the survey to reflect a more comprehensive look at ways that Metchosinites might counteract global warming in addition to transportation changes and better choices for heating and cooling our homes. Metchosin is unlike most municipalities in the CRD, except perhaps the Highlands, and that could be reflected in a more original set of unique questions instead of the cookie-cutter, one-size-fits-all, fill-in-the-blanks format presented here. Metchosin's uniqueness stems from our retention of natural landscapes and large areas of forest cover. We don't have large industrial polluters or long lines of idling congested traffic or more than a few instances where heating oil or natural gas keep buildings warm. What we do have are beautiful trees and forests that capture carbon into the ground, that release oxygen into the air for everyone, that protect biodiversity and maintain the integrity of local ecosystems, and that collect and store the vital rainfall into our aquifer and gently release surface water to streams and creeks to enrich all life. This is how we face the challenges of climbing temperatures, by protecting this amazing benefactor, this natural benefactor. This is our contribution to regional climate action, by protecting the natural systems on every one of our individual properties, by conserving water for its intrinsic value to all living things, by supporting local agriculture to make our food supply more sustainable, by sharing and caring for one another, and by protecting the land, our home, as if it were part of our family, which it is. This survey and the resultant climate action plan is important to outline the possibilities for mitigation and adaptation here in Metchosin. But I think it was a big missed opportunity not to acknowledge the importance of our unique situation and to highlight measures that some Metchosin residents have already undertaken in areas beyond the cars we drive and the buildings we heat. I would also have liked to have seen a much broader survey sample, as I'm not sure how extensive the reach into the community is. And this kind of moment-in-time assessment can prove invaluable for planning future steps. It just seems that the implementation is a bit rushed, with not very much thought or consideration with regard to the survey's usefulness. Now, the second issue stems from Johnny Carline's article in this month's Muse, titled, "The New Council, How Are They Doing?" He says that he found some, quote, "serious tension and angst seem to be present among the group." Interesting. He doesn't speculate as to the cause, but hints at the toxic and corrosive nature of such a situation. However, nobody seems to want to discuss the huge looming elephant in the room, this room, or rather the room where in-camera meetings are held. Now, I'm assuming that all of council, the acting CAO, and the recording staff present at these meetings all know what I'm leading. What they may not know is how many other members of the community are also aware of the situation behind these closed doors. It's not a matter of a breach of confidentiality or a lack of respect for the proper protocols or necessary protection of personal information. It is, however, a matter of reporting abuse in the workplace when it occurs. Using the protection of a closed meeting room to perpetrate personal harassment and aggressive bullying on another member of council is not acceptable behavior. And when community members become aware of such egregious actions, they become concerned for the well-being of the victim, as well as trying to understand what could possibly precipitate such aggression. In the final part of the previous council term, audiences witnessed angry outbursts from former Mayor Rance and his deliberate attempts to discredit and defame the reputation of a councillor. That same person has again been targeted and literally attacked to undermine their abilities. The similarities in these two instances are stunning, and the question why is beyond imagining. We now have a present councillor acting on behalf of a former mayor to continue this abusive situation. And again, why? What's clear is that this needs to stop now. I've not mentioned the names of individuals involved, but I'm willing to bet that everyone in this room knows exactly about whom I'm speaking. If this abuse and the destructive atmosphere that it has created can be concluded with a formal, sincere apology and a believable promise to behave with a professional and compassionate approach to all colleagues, the matter can be forgiven and council can again move forward with the business that they've been elected to do. These chambers are no place for petty personal problems, and all members of this council and the district staff deserve to feel safe and comfortable when they come together to conduct the chosen business. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak?
Patty Whitehouse, 5311 Rocky Point Road. First, I want to second Shelby's comments regarding the survey. I tend to agree with him that it was not particularly creative with respect to looking at the long-term implications of keeping our land as it is. But the comments I particularly want to make were prompted by, but are not specific to, the matter coming before the Community Planning Committee tomorrow, the application for rezoning at on Beckenham Place. And they have generally to do with rezonings rather than the specific one, and are based on my experience in both Highlands and Metchosin. When we had a discussion recently about what constitutes the rural character of Metchosin, one of the points that was made was the tendency towards estate developments, which are maybe on large lots, but are not rural in character. And I don't know if it's possible, but a way that I can, whether it's legally possible, but a way that I can see to address that concern is to, in developments is quite common for developers to make building schemes that set out particular requirements for the development of the properties. And they can often include things like minimum house sizes, specific building materials, put restrictions on things such as the keeping of livestock. I would very much like us to see if it's possible for us to prohibit developers from providing building schemes that require a minimum house size, so that people can't, if they wish to, build a smaller house that is more energy efficient, uses fewer building resources, that allows people to use natural building materials such as cob and straw bale instead of being restricted to hardy plank, and that does not interfere with people's right to keep livestock as according to Metchosin's provisions. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole Shukin, Levon Road resident. Thanks for the chance to comment on 2 agenda items, starting with the staff recommendation for rabbit management. Now, I seem to recall this issue coming to the committee back in November, correct me if I'm wrong, and given the time that there's been to look into an approach to this pesky problem, it's surprising that there's no consideration given to how effective or not the one-time recommended expenditure of $10,000 may be. What's missing to my mind is a holistic framework for ongoing management, along with a more realistic costing. If there's one thing we all know, there's no one-off treatment that could possibly rabbit-proof Metchosin or any place for that matter. So to be realistic and effective, the recommended one-time cost of $10,000 needs to be considered within a framework of ongoing management. Given these rabbits have 5 or more litters each year, as the planner noted, if just 2 escape, how long will it be before we need to throw more money at the problem? Half a year? A year? It's wasted money unless there's a plan in place and longer-term costing that will show how this effort will be followed up on. And more, I'm not sure what the approach is that's being considered. Is it a cull? Is it a capture and relocation approach? What is the area or the scope of management? Like, what does the $10,000 cover? Will it reach to Uminami Farm on Metchosin's eastern side? Up on the Bond Road, we are seeing these rabbits. So in short, I'm just wondering whether a one-off stab at the issue will be effective. I totally support dealing with the rabbits. I just think there needs to be a sort of multi-staged plan. And I also want to quickly note in another vein, the terrific speaker brought in by the APRM for its AGM last week. Thomas Homer Dixon's talk made me realize anew what a pocket of peace and prosperity we have in Metchosin, and what a crime it is when we squander opportunities like we have to fortify democratic principles and practices. I'm grateful for the change that I've seen in the culture of leadership under our current mayor, who's put democracy into practice through a couple of things I've noticed, like the system of revolving deputy mayors, the monthly teas, to engage with the public. I went to one of the teas last week, I think, and I think there were about 25 or more people there. As Councillor Gray noted at a previous meeting, mayors aren't like CEOs of big corporations. And our mayor's sharing of the role of deputy mayor to be inclusive of all councillors is a great change from that kind of top-down model. So I'm grateful to all of you for listening rather than lecturing from the political pulpit. And Thomas Homer Dixon described some of the malignant political theater and point scoring that is tearing our world apart. So I just am so grateful we have peace and a chance to deal with issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Vicky, Kangaroo Road. I just wanted to, I don't have anything prepared, but just wanted to echo the previous person's thoughts about the rabbits, that we do need a overall plan, and to also, I can't speak on behalf of the business community as a whole, but certainly for myself and for our local business, we would like to ask that we be included in any discussions and also possibly be part of the plan so that we can work as a community effort. That this can't be done as a one-off. This is going to have to be a constant management, and we would certainly like to be part of that and part of the solution rather than the problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Saluk, Neff Road. As a woman and an elder in this community, I wish to add that long ago with our First Nations, the women were the matriarchs, and they made wise decisions for their communities based on an awareness of our oneness with Mother Earth and the understanding of what community means, how you build that community with love and respect. The men at that time backed up their decisions with trust and awareness of their wisdom. Unfortunately now, women in almost all cultures are having to deal with the attitudes that male colonialism has brought with them. And I am sure all the women in this room and our community will not put up with that anymore and will stand up for one another. It takes only one thought for an individual to change unwanted behavior, and it's time now to grow and expand together our understanding and respect for one another. We all can do this better and better every day. So let's start now.
Thank you.
Katie Nelson, William Head Road, and I just wanted to agree with what the two speakers who spoke about the rabbit problem said. I think it's really important for whoever is bringing forward these ideas as to how rabbits should be or can be controlled or eliminated, I like the best, so that we can know and really get the homework done on what works, what hasn't worked in the past, why it didn't work, and yes, it's got to be ongoing. There's no such thing as just the rabbits disappear and they don't come back. So we need a good plan, and we need for the community to hear about different aspects of it as it develops, not just we throw $10,000 at it and say we tried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dorothy Elias, William Head Road. I just want to put in another vote in favor of the issue of dealing with the rabbits. I'm very pleased that this has come forward, and I agree that it's a really large problem that will need a consistent and wide-ranging solution, and I really would argue for that rather than a one-off attempt at dealing with it. And I just also want to say that I am pleased to support any efforts at increasing or supporting civil interactions in our community and in our council, and any way of furthering this is something we should all work toward. Thank you.
Eric White, 4290 Metchosin Road. Every year I lose thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars, to rabbits in them destroying my crops. It only takes one, and then there is 10, and then they exponentially explode. And I personally take care of them myself, but the issue is the neighboring properties where I can't unfortunately take care of them because I can't trespass on my neighbor's lands, without good permission from them. So that's actually the issue at hand, is the access to people's properties to take care of this, because on one hand it's great if everyone's like, yeah, let's do this and you can come on my land and do this, but it'll take one person who says, I love the rabbits too much, I can't have them gone, and they're just gonna keep spreading out from there. I know this firsthand because, again, my property I take care of, my other neighbor takes care of their property, the other couple neighbors, unfortunately I don't think they can take care of their property because of age or whatever it is that, so there's a range of issues with culling the rabbits in a one-time attempt because it is dependent on everyone participating. I think probably my suggestion is treat it kind of like invasive weeds, where it's up to the homeowner to take care of it, and when it does get to a point, I do believe there's agencies that will get involved and come and take care of them, because we can't have hogweed spreading like wild and stuff like that. I just want to get to actually how much damage they cause. Not only do I lose crops, they're undermining my buildings. They're digging under the barns, and the foundations are, right, taking it from them. We had a no-kill policy on our property because my family's squeamish and doesn't, care to have animals killed on their property. But that changed instantly the moment my mom broke her leg. She stepped in a rabbit hole, and that was it. She said, "You are welcome to deal with them however you want," because she broke her leg. Now, this is a human leg, and that's one thing, and well, lots of us love their horses, and wait till someone's horse steps in one of these holes, and right, we love our horses probably more than our parents, kind of thing. Joking aside. But point being is, they're destructive, they're dangerous, we've got to do something about them, and I'm ongoing something about them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to speak? If not, we'll carry on with the agenda. Thank you for all your comments. Moving to page 5, the adoption of the minutes. Looks like I'm the only one that's not on page 5. Okay, this is the special council meeting of March 2nd. Could I have a motion to adopt the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the council meeting of March the 6th.
Move adoption.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. Discussion. There was a number of items on this agenda. Anybody have any comments, concerns? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the receipt of the minutes. We have the Special Finance Committee meeting, budget meeting of February 28th. Councillor Donaldson, would you like to make a motion? Move receipt by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. Comments? No? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Again, Councillor Donaldson, this is the Finance Committee meeting minutes for receipt of March 6, 2023. On page 15.
Move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Gray. Concerns, comments? No? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. Moving on to the Community Planning Committee meeting of March 13th. Councillor Shukin.
Move receipt, please.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. I just wanted to note to everybody that we did go on a site visit, all of us today, to the Ireland Place as we had promised, and that development variance permit will come forward. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. On page 21, this is the Environment and Natural Areas Committee meeting of March 13th, 2023. Councillor Gray.
Move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments? No? Okay. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So, on page 23, the Public Works and Protective Service Committee meeting of March 13th, 2023.
Move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Epp. Move receipt, Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Next on the agenda is the Mayor's report. I have a number of things to say. What I plan to do is have one written report and one verbal report. The written report was last time. This is my verbal report. This is this is an indication that we wish to rise and report on some closed items. Council appointments. Peter Chettleberg and Andrew Penn have been appointed to the Agriculture Advisory Select Committee. Sarah Anthony, Sherry Rourke, and Ted White have been appointed to the Healthy Community Advisory Committee. I want to thank all the volunteers for putting their name forward. As you know, Metchosin runs on volunteers, and so thank you for your applications and thank you for your willingness to put your name forward, and congratulations. Okay. Maintaining positive relationships with my fellow councillor members and staff is very important to me. Reflecting on last month's council meeting, I was very pleased to see we were hard on the issues and sometimes respectful to each other. The community of Metchosin has elected a diverse group of individuals who all have very strong personalities. It is perfectly normal to have political disagreements with each other as we come to this table with different values, different backgrounds, and goals. I hope and believe we can continue to work together in our environment where we vigorously debate our policies as our term progresses, but we remain respectful of each other so that after the meeting is over, we maintain good relations with each other and our community. It is nice when we unanimously agree on issues, but as I've said before, we can disagree, we can then vote, and then we move on. This council has already shown great unity thus far on our priorities and our strategic planning, and I expect us to achieve great things during this term. However, we must all work together towards a common goal of protecting Metchosin and its rural environment and ensuring that we do so with good governance and in a fiscally responsible way. Tonight, we have a number of different reports for action to consider. As many of you know, we are committed to reviewing our policies and our bylaws. The first is an administrative item. The District of Metchosin Respectful Workplace Policy we are considering. In 2013, workplaces in BC, including municipal governments, were required to have a bullying and harassment policy and a program in place. These policies and procedures must be reviewed annually. We currently only have a sexual harassment policy, E100.001. The District of Metchosin and this council is committed to providing and maintaining a respectful workplace, and our commitment is outlined in this policy. The policy has been reviewed by our legal counsel and it complies with all relevant legislations. It outlines roles and responsibilities, annual review and training, and procedures for complaint investigations and resolution process, and touches on important issues such as confidentiality, the complaint process, including fairness, and how to handle unsubstantiated complaints and vexatious allegations. The second item for you to consider is establishing an accessibility committee as per provincial guidelines. The proposal is a collaborative effort for a sub-regional accessibility advisory committee composed of 7 municipalities on the West Shore. This is between the city of Colwood and Langford, the township of Esquimalt, and the districts of Souk and Metchosin and the town of View Royal. Specifically, this document speaks to 3 requirements of the municipalities: to establish the accessibility committee, to develop an accessibility plan, and to establish a process for receiving public feedback on the plan and barriers that people may face in interacting with this organization. The proposed plan to be developed will go a long way in following stated principles in inclusion, adaptability, diversity, collaboration, and self-determination. Thirdly, we're also giving consideration to an invasive species management plan. I encourage the council to be careful and to give careful consideration to all of these items. Now let's get on with the meeting. Thank you. So, business arising from the minutes. We have a number of these. This is to be considered by the council meeting of today. Councillor Shukin on page 27 of the community planning recommendations.
Thanks very much, Mayor Little. I want to move forward the motion that the Community Planning Committee made on March 13th regarding the Focus on Metchosin event, and I'll read this out. That council approve in principle a new scaled-back Focus on Metchosin event on September 10th, 2023, and that council cover costs up to $4,000 in addition to any costs for professional flaggers for traffic control, and further that the Metchosin Bay Committee work with staff on developing a parking management plan for the event. I would move this for council's approval.
Okay, moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Carry on.
Okay, so Mayor Little, thanks very much. I have a procedural question on this next one, and it's the request for the development variance permit 4990 Ireland Place. So through you, Mayor Little, to Sue-Lynn and Tina, I question whether it has to be on the council agenda because the committee approved this, and essentially what was approved was to send notices to the landowners and to book a site visit. And again, I'd like to believe that the committee is able to do that, not through a council recommendation. So can I get some clarity on that?
Yeah, I'll provide some clarification and I'll ask Tina to weigh in. So what we have before us is we've made at the committee meeting, you're right, this is where we have the fulsome or the more in-depth debate. Then resolutions are passed forward. We have a period of, let's say, sober second thought where council's able to reflect on what we've done, and then it's brought forward to the council meeting to be ratified. And so this being on the agenda, as with all the other items, doesn't mean there's called any of this is called into question. It allows that time for sober second thought. And for councillor members, any of them are saying, well, you know, I have a second thoughts, maybe we could have done this better or whatever. And that's what this is for. I'm just going to turn to Tina. Would you like to add anything to this?
Just that there's a notice requirement that has to be met, of sending notices to adjacent neighbors of when the application will be considered by council. Okay. So the notices have to go out in a specific time. And then the consideration comes at the April 3rd meeting.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Thank you very much. I see no harm. I will move this for council's approval. That council directs staff to send notices to landowners within 60 meters of the property, informing them of the application and the April 3rd, 2023 council meeting where the issuance of the permit will be considered. So moved.
Okay, so the motion's moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Discussion? No? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great, thank you. Thank you for the question. Okay, business arising from the minutes. The Environment and Natural Areas Committee meeting, recommendations of March 13th. Councillor Gray.
The first item is that council directs staff to bring forward a staff report for council consideration related to the issues the district is facing around invasive rabbits, and that staff include options and costs for dealing with this issue. The item will be on the agenda 7B coming up.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Comments? No? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Go ahead.
The second item came from the Metchosin Environmental Advisory Select Committee and then to the Environment Committee, and the motion reads that council submit a response letter to the province on the coastal marine strategy for BC, the intentions paper, and that the letter include council's perspectives highlighting shared concerns and priorities for coastal marine ecosystem health and community well-being, and further that all council's supporting documents be included with the letter.
Okay. Thank you. So this is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Concerns, comments?
I could just speak to the motion in a moment to say that the province is seeking input in the marine strategy. And so at the Environment Committee, we talked about including our concerns and our priorities relating to several items that we've already addressed in council. We weren't going to answer the entire strategy report, but focus on the declaration of climate emergency and biodiversity crisis, the Trans Mountain Environmental Assessment Office Condition 35 related to bitumen behavior on water, our resolution to the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities about ending old growth logging, and our similar resolution to the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities review of Anchorage's request.
Okay, moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Just to add one other thing, which is to remind people that 2 days, March 22nd, is World Water Day. And today I'm wearing a water drop and thinking of that. And maybe an action people could think of would be to identify the watershed that they live in, if they've not already done that.
Okay, thank you. So business arising from the minutes of March 20, Public Works and Protective Service Committee recommendations of March 13. Councillor Ebb.
Okay, I'll move that council refer the Fire Hall Steering Committee terms of reference back to staff for review as per the recommendations from the steering committee.
Okay, moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Schuken. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay.
Okay, I move that council through the budget planning process consider allocating up to $80,000 in the 2023 to 2027 5-year financial plan for a fire hall feasibility study, and that council direct staff to bring forward a report on the current status of the fire hall, including needs study for the fire hall, professional engineers reports, and relevant background information.
Okay, moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor somebody? Councillor Schuken. Comments? I just had one question. The allocation of up to 80,000, I've also heard from other people that that's enormously inflated, that it won't take that much. Have you heard of a more revised, more realistic amount?
I think in the finance meeting agenda tomorrow it mentions 40,000, but this does go to 2027, so it kind of leaves us room, for unexpected things, or just things being more expensive than we might think. It's if we don't use it all, that's great, but at least it will be there.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Donaldson?
Yes, Councillor Epp is correct. There are a couple different line items. We'll have more definition about it tomorrow afternoon at the budget meeting. It is excessive, the 80,000, and as much as I realize it's over time, we have a lot of asks this year, including rabbits. So I would like to see this particular motion reconsider the up to 80,000. I think we need to discuss tomorrow night clearly what it is that we want to invest in this. The example that was given at the steering committee meeting was based on an urban study that was done, and it was in the range of 50 to 55,000. So I don't know because I haven't gotten all the information, so it would be nice to have clarity.
Okay. Councillor Schuken.
I'm good with the motion, but with an understanding that we're going to have hearty and robust debate at the committee level, or the budget committee. So I get your point, or Councillor Donaldson's point about it probably being high. We heard a number of comments about that, but I'm totally good to have that discussion at the budget level.
Okay. Okay, so are you okay with that going to your meeting then, as up to?
I am, but I won't support the up to 80,000.
Okay. Okay, then I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Donaldson opposed. Thank you very much, everybody. Reports for action. Okay, as I mentioned in my mayor's report, this is the administrative policy on the Metchosin Respectful Workplace. Now, was it this that you had some slides, or was it the next one? The next one. Okay. Could I ask you to speak to this? Do you want to come to the microphone, just so the people at home can hear you as well?
So just really in brief, just to follow up what you had mentioned earlier, Mayor Little, is the requirement for a harassment policy actually came into effect 2013. So we're just bringing Metchosin in line with that requirement. You'll see that the policy attached is very comprehensive. That speaks to not just behavior and also the processes and procedures to deal with any reported incidents or allegations, I should say, of any behavior in the workplace that is not in accordance with what's in the policy. And back of the policy as well, you'll see that we have a form on page
47.
48.
Oh, 48.
It's just really to reinforce the understanding declaration on an annual basis that all members that's covered under this policy, that includes council, volunteers, and staff, to sign to acknowledge that they have read the policy and understand it on an annual basis. So.
Okay. Okay, that's great. And that's, so it'll be for council, staff, and volunteers.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Okay, so council, we have this policy. Could I have some comments, or perhaps I'll accept a motion and then second it, and then we can discuss. How's that sound? Councillor Gray?
I'll move adoption of the draft policy before us, the District of Metchosin Respectful Workplace Policy.
Okay, moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Epp. Do you wish to motivate?
Sure. Sorry.
That means, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Certainly. I think this is sound policy. It's something the district could use, and it's a great idea. Me looking through it looks super easy to actually adhere to the policy in terms of behavior, straightforward and clear. And as Mayor Little explained, it has listed purpose and how the investigations happen and dealing with problems that may arise. And for that reason, I move that we adopt it.
Okay. Councillor Epp, did you want to speak to the second of the motion?
No, I think it's a really comprehensive policy and makes a lot of sense and seems to cover all the bases. So I'm very happy with it.
Okay, great. Councillor Shukin.
Mayor Little, through you, question to Sue Lin. How standard is the policy? And so there's no implication that you stole it from somebody or anything like that. But is this a standard policy, or is there anything unique to Metchosin?
It's not, the only part that's unique to Metchosin is the how-to part, given that we're a smaller municipality. But this is the best of all the policies that have worked. Obviously, as you do iterations of policies, you'll find out which parts work and which parts don't work. So this is really the compilation of the parts that work. Great.
Okay. So, yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, another question, but
yeah, go ahead with your second question.
And a question about training to prepare for implementation. I'm just curious through you, Marilyn, to Sue. Any thoughts about training and implementation?
Yes, in terms of the training. So we do have a particular consultant in mind. Nothing's been finalized yet, but definitely is to train. And it's not so much to speak specifically to the policy, because it's a policy that anybody can read, but it's really how do we put that in practice, in practical sense. What does that look like in practice?
Okay. And I think I'd also make the recommendation that staff and council take it together with the same moderator. I think that would be very useful for everybody to hear the same message. Okay. Great. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Councillor Donaldson.
So as it's going to apply to volunteers, our advisory groups, etc., would we include them then with the training that we would be taking?
You know what, I just didn't hear the last part of your sentence. Say it again.
Would the volunteers also be doing the training with staff and council?
I hadn't thought about that, no, but there are videos that we could recommend, but no, they wouldn't be given the official training. Okay, so we have a motion on the table, moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Epp, to adopt the Administrative Policy 100.4 District of Metchosin Respectful Workplace Policy. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, terrific. The second is a report also from the Interim Chief Administrative Officer. She's got a few slides, so just give us a moment. This is regarding the Accessible BC Act and the requirements by the province to the municipalities.
Try this. It works. It works. Okay. So in brief, as of September of this year, so September 2023, municipalities are considered prescribed organizations under the Accessibility Act BC, which became law June 2021. So what that means is that we now have to implement the three following things. So the first one is establish Accessibility Advisory Committee. That's section 9 of the law. The second requirement is to develop an accessibility plan. And the third is to establish process to receive feedback on plan and barriers. Okay. So part one, pretty straightforward, is so the intention of Accessibility Committee is to assist us in identifying barriers to interacting with the local government and to make recommendations on how to remove and prevent barriers. So when I speak of barriers, it can be either physical or environmental barriers. So there are options available to establishment of this committee. And the three options that staff have identified are the ones you see on the slide. The first one being to establish the District Metchosin's committee. So it's a standalone committee that is established just in Metchosin. The second one is to engage a third party to facilitate committee. So possible party to that could be IACTI. And I'll speak a little bit about that later. And the third one is to participate in regional committee. Okay. So our recommendation is to participate in a regional committee, which I'm going to speak about momentarily. I do want to take time though right now to acknowledge all the work that IACTI has done, and also their mandate is to promote and foster active living and the full participation of people with disabilities. So one of the thoughts that was presented or proposed was to partner with IACTI to meet this requirement. However, if we were to go ahead with that option, which means that IACTI would require to adjust their terms of reference because their terms of reference doesn't quite align with what's required under the this act. So the name, this proposed name of the collaborative committee, it's Capital West Accessibility Advisory Committee. That's quite a mouthful. So it's for a multi-jurisdictional advisory committee that's composed of 7 municipalities: Colwood, Langford, Soup, Esquimalt, Metchosin, Rural, and Highlands. So the sole focus on this committee, proposed committee, will be to identify barriers and provide advice on how to remove or prevent barriers for those people engaging with the municipalities. So there's no mandate to update or anything, it's just a recommendation and identification. Okay, part 2 is the development of an accessibility plan. So you'll see that proposed amount in budget discussion tomorrow. That is to provide for council to provide up to $10,000 for collaborative development of an accessibility plan. That's again to take advantage of the economies of scale. So just to speak a little bit more about the accessibility plan, is that the proposal is, it would be a standard-based document of checklist for each municipality that we can take away and use. And then member municipalities can use the plan to evaluate capital and non-core projects, plus any operational initiatives. And the plan can also inform municipal work plans, address items such as tactile walk surfaces indicators, any audible pedestrian signals that obviously doesn't apply in Metchosin, and any public realm treatments, trails, and or benches. So again, I'd like to reiterate that physical upgrades are not mandated under the Act, it's just recommendation. It doesn't make any recommendation, mandate to upgrade. So the third requirement under the Act is to set up a mechanism to receive public feedback. So one of the ideas that the municipalities came up with is to set up a somewhat neutral, if you will, email that will just say something along the line of accessibility at Metchosin or Suka or VRoyal, and the staff will manage that email. So that's a forum to receive feedback. And all the recommendations and comments will be forwarded to the committee to be dealt with as appropriate. Resource implication, that's a big part. Accessibility plan is recommended review every 3 years. And recruitment and ongoing operations of committee members, that's no different than any other committees. Development and monitoring of feedback tools and web page information. So whatever feedback that the municipalities received, we will have to come up with a plan on how to deal with those feedback and comments that's received. So in terms of reference, that's attached in your package on page 8. Sorry, item 8, I don't have this one. Sorry. And if there's any physical upgrades, that will be done on the sole responsibility of the individual municipality. So it's not an upgrade that the whole committee will be responsible for, but each individual municipality. Okay, so in summary, we're coming up against a mandated deadline, which is to establish the committee by September 2023. Okay, so the proposal, the merit of this proposal that is cost effective and to partner with our neighbors instead of setting up our own committees individually. And it's a way to streamline a legislatively focused response and mandate. An accessibility plan can improve the work of our municipalities and help to create communities where all persons can participate more fully and equally. So should council wish to proceed with a sub-region approach and commit to membership in the Capital West Accessibility Advisory Committee, then we can get started, we as in staff, on working together with our neighbors to make this work happen. So this coordinated approach will have a legislative focus that meets our requirements and overall benefit of improving our community. So happy to take any questions if you have. This is just a summary of the slide. Last slide of the requirements that we need to fill. So.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions of Sue Lin on her presentation or on the municipal requirements? So we've got the background and the discussion, the conclusions are here, as well as the recommendations. Does anybody have any questions on this particular? Councillor Gray.
Sue Lin, is this going forward all at the same time to all those other different municipalities?
Yes, it is. It's going forward all 7 municipalities. So far, SOUP just approved this afternoon, and strengthening the top of my head is Esquimalt.
Great, thank you.
Esquimalt. that approved it last week, and the rest of the member municipalities are all bringing it forward. If it's not this week, then next week at the latest.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Councillor Shuken, then Councillor Epp.
Thanks, Sue-Lynn. So the deadline for establishing the committee is September 1st, 2023. Any sense of timing on the accessibility plan?
It depends on the availability of consultants, so I'd imagine that because everybody's required to do that, so that might be the next challenge. I'm not going to say that it will be, but that could be the next challenge.
Interesting. Okay. And I do like the idea of working on a collective approach, and it sounds like some work, clearly there's a terms of reference here, has been done. And
A lot of work.
Okay. Any sense of who's headlining that work?
So it was actually a discussion that came with myself and Bureau Oil. So we talked about, instead of, well, why do we want to individually establish our own committees? So we just started from there, and I had to really give a lot of thanks to Bureau Oil that really spearheaded keeping this project moving along. So.
Great. Sorry, one more question. And so it seems like the recommendation is to continue with IACD as well as this committee? Or?
Yes, so we're not going to speak about the IACD. This is really to say that, like I said, one of the ideas we first tossed out was, can we make IACD or modify the terms of reference to fit we just felt that it's too much change and having to ask IACD to pivot to fit this very narrow mandate that's required under this law. So.
Okay. Councillor Ed.
Well, I think it certainly makes the most sense to work collaboratively with the other municipalities, and I will move the recommendation. I'm not sure, do I need to read it all out?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I move it in response to the provincial requirement to establish an accessibility committee by September 1st, 2023. The municipality participate in a joint sub-regional accessibility committee, the Capital West Accessibility Advisory Committee, comprising the City of Colwood, the Township of Esquimalt, District of Highlands, City of Langford, the District of Metchosin, District of Souk, and the Town of View, and that each member municipality of this joint sub-regional accessibility advisory committee contribute up to $10,000 to retain a consultant to prepare an accessibility plan which member municipalities will apply to their own accessibility initiatives, and that each member municipality of this joint sub-regional accessibility advisory committee allocate nominal annual operating funds for committee expenses, and that the draft committee terms of reference provided as attachment D to this report be adopted, and that a joint accessibility advisory committee ad be placed seeking members for this committee, and further that the member municipalities each establish an email address to receive public comments as set out in the legislation.
Okay. So the recommendation has been made into a motion, moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. More discussion. I just had some comments. I wanted to know, with the $10,000 contribution, was this weighted? Was it per capita or just every?
No, it's just 1/7.
Okay. And then the other question that I have is, actually that's one of the first things that Sid Tobias talked to me about when I first met him very soon after the election. He said, hey, MT. I don't know why he said, he can call me that, but anyway, he says, hey, MT, can't we collaborate on this disability stuff? And I said, I think we can. So I'm very pleased to see this. I also say that I was the representative for the IACD for the last 4 years, so that this is the Intermunicipal Action Committee on Disability Issues. Marnie Essery, who is the chair of that committee, is a fierce advocate for persons with different abilities. She has my utmost respect. She's also the secretary with our Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee. And I'm just wondering, I don't want to sideline them. I'm disappointed that their terms of reference couldn't be bolstered for this committee, but I do understand practicalities. Is it possible that a member of that committee or 2 members can be appointed to this committee? Would they just have to put forward their letter of expression of interest? Is that how they would go about it?
I think, however, we normally go about, so we would advertise, staff again, no different than other committees, we would advertise for members, And we fully expect that there will be crossed over for membership between IACT and this new accessibility committee,
Okay.
instead of full mouthful of capital S, whatever it is.
Okay, and we do have a representative for IACD at the council, that's Councillor Donaldson. Have you had a meeting yet this year?
No, they
Yeah.
have their AGM coming up next month.
Okay, so they will remain in the community out of Colwood, but they will remain, as I say, fierce advocates for the disability community and the community of people with differing abilities. So, okay, any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the recommendation as Councillor Epp reiterated here. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. That's unanimous. Okay. Okay, page 77. This is the invasive species management. Everybody get to page 77. Okay, so this is the invasive species management. It's particularly to deal with, pardon?
If I may.
Yeah, just wait.
I
I
just
know
want to
you're,
declare conflict of interest.
pardon?
I just wanted to declare conflict of interest
Oh,
on
okay.
this topic of invasive species matter before council. My wife has a commercial flower growing business that has been adversely affected. And I think she may be the first person who sent a letter several years ago to the district seeking some relief. Mary Little asked me to do some research on the issues, and I've done that working with our staff. However, I do not think I should remain in the room for the discussion and decision-making this evening. Thank you.
Okay. And Tina, if you could note that Councillor Gray has declared a conflict of interest and he's left the room at 8:08. Okay, so we have this report before you. The questions that I had, and I don't know about you, and many of the members of our community have spoken to this already, is I think we need an overall plan with a gestation period of 25 to 34 days. If we take out, if we remove, or we successfully remove a tenth of them, you can imagine what the population will be like. And I believe, from my research anyways, that these species, they reproduce all year round. They do reproduce more frequently in the spring. But I do agree that we need an overall plan, and spending $10,000. I just wanted to know, what do we get for $10,000? And to put it crudely, how many of the species are captured for that amount? Those are the questions that I had. Does anybody else want to comment on this?
I don't. I have those same questions as well. And Mayor Little, through you, Sue Lynn, is there any further background on what we're getting, what level of service we're getting for $10,000? And sorry, one more question too. Generally, what might the timeframes be? Generally.
Timeframes in terms of setting up this management process?
Yeah.
So it depends on the availability of the contractor. Right now, it's looking like, I'm just trying to recall the top of my head, about the next week or so. It's possible next 2 weeks perhaps. So quite quickly.
Mayor Little, just a follow-up comment. I think it's very good that we're taking some action. And I think what we're going to find is that we will learn from the steps that we're taking, and we'll be able to refine a plan further on. So to the points that were made, we are going to have a longer term plan, but let's work on with some knowledge that we have based on our actual experience. So I'm prepared to accept and move forward with this motion for the program. Sorry.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Councillor Donaldson.
I support it as well, and I think there's some very good comments made from the public this evening. I had a phone call from a farmer today saying that their husband was going to come and talk, which he didn't make it this evening, but he is hopping mad because it has interfered with their business. They have a very large agriculture business in this community, and it's, you know, we're not just talking about our municipal grounds. We already know that they're unearthing the foundation areas, they're nesting underneath the grandstands, they're tunneling underneath the, you know, all sorts of different places. But they're moving further and further afield. Every year we see the tiny little bunnies around Easter time. Yeah, we definitely, this is one of our invasive species. How we're gonna manage it, that is, you know, there's different ways of eradicating, but we don't want this to be returned. It was reported this last week that Public Works members have seen somebody drop off a bunny. So we need a plan to let the broader public know that we are not a dumping ground for unwanted pets. So I'm not sure how we're going to go about all this stuff, but it will have to be ongoing for sure.
Okay, Councillor Epp.
Yeah, I agree. We will need an ongoing plan. But I do think that this one is for 2023, and we won't really be able to set up an ongoing plan until we know what the plan is and to be able to figure out what is going to work in the future. So I'd just like to, you know, I think we should just go with this one and then hope for the best.
Okay. The only problem is I don't know what we're going to go with this one, but I don't know what this one is. The report came through on Councillor Gray's agenda item on March 13th. It was to include options and costs, so options as in plural, not one option, one cost in dealing with this issue. I'm just wondering, and I understand this is a sensitive area, but I'd like some more information because I think I would be a little bit upset if I heard this $10,000 was spent on 20 rabbits, which won't provide a dent in the situation. That's extreme, but I'm just wondering if we could get some assurances or some idea of what we're looking at here, because this is sort of short on details.
So to the details, this is, has been mentioned, this is anybody's guess. We're estimating 15 days. How many rabbits? I can't speak to that. But that's the estimation. The $10,000 is based on 15 days of management.
15 days of surveillance and capture?
Yes.
Okay. So everybody comfortable with that?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it would be great to also have a council resolution that we will put into the works, a bona fide plan for moving forward with an effective invasive species strategy. Okay? Okay, so with that, could I have a motion? So on page 78 of your council agenda, the options are there. If I could have a motion to that effect? Okay.
A motion that council authorize staff to contract for removal of feral rabbits and other invasive species. I'm assuming this is just rabbits right now?
Just rabbits.
Yes, okay. With a maximum 2023 expenditure of $10,000 from the Environmental Reserve Fund.
Okay, that's moved by Councillor Donaldson, second by Councillor Epp. More discussion? No? Not. Called question. All in favor? Nobody opposed. That's unanimous. The second resolution that I'm asking for is that we commit to having an effective comprehensive strategy going forward so that this can be, the invasive species can be eradicated in Metchosin.
So moved.
Okay, that's moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Did you get the motion, Tina? Yep, Tina's got the motion. Discussion, anybody? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great, thank you. Okay, if you could retrieve Councillor Gray, thank you. So we'll move to page 85 of the council agenda. So on page 85 of your council agenda, this is the Municipal Insurance Association of BC Annual General Meeting, voting delegate. And so as everybody knows from the last conference, the MIABC, or the Municipal Insurance Association of BC, provides local governments with property and liability insurance, as well as outreach programs and expert advice. The District of Metchosin is an active member of MIABC and has recently subscribed to the MIBC Casual Legal Advice Program. The discussion is there is going to be a conference, an annual general meeting scheduled to take place on Tuesday, September 19th at the UBCM convention. In accordance with Article 6.13, the Reciprocal Insurance Exchange Agreement, council members must appoint a delegate and 2 alternates to be registered with the MIABC to vote at the MIABC AGM. Lots of acronyms. With that, I will take an motion. This has in the past it was appointed to the mayor. The mayor didn't attend a lot of UBCM, so it went to another council member. I'm happy to be the delegate, but if you want to vote for somebody else, that would be fine. Okay. What say ye? Councillor Donaldson.
I move that council appoint 1 delegate and 2 alternate council members for the voting purposes of the MIABC AGM.
Okay.
Second.
Second, do we want to name them?
Mayor Little,
Yes.
I've had some exposure to actuarial sciences, and so I would very happily recommend that you continue as our delegate to this spot.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So we'll call that question, and then we'll appoint the 2 alternate directors. So call the question on the mayor being recognized as the appointee from Metchosin. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, and then the 2 delegates. Who would like to volunteer? Who has a passion for insurance and liability and sitting through AGMs?
I could be an alternative.
Okay, great. And you have to go to the conference in September. It's the UBCM where you're planning. Okay,
I was hoping to.
great.
Yeah.
And Councillor Epp, would you like to be an alternate as well?
Sure.
Okay, so Councillor Shuken and Councillor Epp. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, so I'll make the motion that Councillor Shuken and Epp be appointed as alternate members for this committee. Anybody have any comments? No? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. Thank you. And now we have the District of Metchosin Public Communication Report Statistics for February of 2023. It's subdivided into highways, by law enforcement, and general. Does anybody have any comments? Questions? So we do have active communication between our community and the district. You can see that here. It's about on average, and not much to say. Okay, so with that, I'll move receipt of this public communication report. Moved by anybody? Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Shuken. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, with that, let's move on to the correspondence, shall we? So the first bit of correspondence was a letter that I received from Constant Turi, the Regional Deputy Commissioner of the Pacific Region of the Correctional Services of Canada. This was a letter of March 8th that was in response to our letter that we had sent to them. And she acknowledges that she received the correspondence. She offered condolences to the family of Mr. Payne and the friends, and acknowledged the significant impact this has had on our community. She also wanted to convey her deep gratitude for our communication and our relationship with the William Head Prison, as well as the frank and productive and forward-looking engagements with the warden, Trent Mitchell, that the fire chief and I have had to strengthen those and maintain the open communications and to building trust in the community. So they also agree that public safety is of paramount. They have made changes, as we noted in our letter to them. They agree that public safety is paramount. The Corrections Service Canada and William Head Institution have implemented a number of changes to strengthen public safety. They've changed their assessment of their protocols and their processes. And with that, they concluded, and with contact information for Mr. Mitchell at William Head Prison, who I spoke to again today as well. So that is correspondence. I don't think we need a motion to receive that. You've seen it, so we don't need a motion for that. And the letter that we wrote back to them, or to them, first of all, and that was in January. Okay. Anybody else want to comment about those letters? No? Okay, let's move on. Oh, did you want to say
I was
something?
just going to say thanks again for the work you did talking with the warden and the people at Corrections Canada along with their fire chief. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the second one, we also received a letter from Minister Bruce Ralston. He's the Minister of Forests. This is a response to our letter of February 15th. And our assertions on the measures to protect old growth forests. And he wrote back to us thanking us for our letter. He referred us to their news release indicating, and there's a link right here that you can go on. He noted an 8-point plan, not in the letter, but referred to the document. The 8-point plan consists of forest landscape planning, BC maintaining good jobs, a silviculture innovation program, and there's money attached to each one of these. Updating forest practices. Number 5, support for First Nations Forestry Council. Number 6, I can't read my own writing. This is terrible. I don't know. That'll be up to you to go to number 6 and try and figure out what that is. I'm sure it's important, and I'm sure it's got a lot of money attached to it. And number, a forest carbon, oh, my eyes are going in. I didn't bring my glasses, sorry. So a forest carbon offset program, and an old growth climate action plan was the number 8. So that was a letter back from Bruce Ralston. We did ask if either himself or a representative wanted to come to council and let us know about their plans. He didn't respond to that, but in my letter back, thanking him for the letter, I will renew that option that they're always welcome in Metchosin. Okay, anybody wish to speak to that? Okay, so third, we have a letter from Anne Sherbrooke. This is a proposal for indoor tennis courts at the old school gym for the multi-purpose facility. She's pointing out that there is now pickleball lines painted, and she was asking why there wasn't any lines painted for indoor tennis courts. There is amenities for pickleball being created, I believe, at the West Shore.
There is, and we're investigating covered tennis and pickleball in the winter months as well.
In where?
Through the winter months
Okay.
for both those sports. So
And that would be at the West Shore?
Yes.
Yeah.
That'll be an option for sure.
Okay, great. Okay, so she's asking and asking us for asking us to consider if we could accommodate tennis as well in the old gym. Okay. Does anybody wish to comment? Yeah, Councillor Eck.
I have responded to this letter and to several others, but anyway, tennis is not suitable for the gym. The facility is not, the ceiling is not high enough, and because this is a multi-purpose facility, we've tried to accommodate as many sort of recreational options as we could, and I consulted with Wanda Fuca with UVic and School District 62 about what they felt were the most appropriate sports to have in there, which is how we chose the ones that we did. And the other factors, because it is a multi-purpose, is going to be hopefully concerts there, possibly theater productions, speaking, conferences, and we will be having acoustic panels, which will probably begin to be installed any day now, and they are going to be on the top of the walls. And the acoustic panels simply would not survive being hit by a tennis ball. So it just really is not a suitable facility, unfortunately. There is the outdoor tennis court there, which we've applied for a couple of straight years through Chief Dunlop to try to get an all-purpose sport court there. So far we haven't got the grants that we hope to get, but that's still ongoing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what lines have been painted for which sports so far? Pickleball and? It's
pickleball and like volleyball, badminton, indoor soccer, possibly floor hockey. This is mostly, the idea mostly was this would be barely nothing, sort of hardcore. This is a place we're hoping that maybe kids especially would be able to have a place they could go and, play sports and just get some things going on there, but certainly kind of low-key ideas is what we had in mind. Okay. I also recently applied for a grant for the outdoor tennis courts for resurfacing. I don't know if we have a chance, but we'll see. Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Thanks. I did see Councillor Epps' response to our correspondent, our inbound correspondent. And it was interesting to see the amount of work he'd done to research the various sports in the gym. One question I have though is a wood floor even suitable for tennis? Did you come across that at all? I kept meaning to ask my son, but he doesn't return my calls.
Well, the thing is, we didn't really look into tennis just because I don't think it was ever considered to be appropriate for that building. Yeah. So that's that space.
Okay, great.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment? Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, I've kind of been following this as well, and I was a little surprised about the wayward tennis balls, because I figured all the other balls would also be wayward, especially if you've got amateur sports people in there. But regardless, the tennis court itself isn't even that high, so it's an interesting comment about the ceiling. We had talked about in healthy communities of having basketball hoops and stuff out in the tennis court.
Is basketball too, I forgot. Yeah.
Is that something that is going to be available out there as well as the indoor? So we're not having everything indoors, we've got beautiful outdoors.
In the outdoor, the sport court?
Yeah.
Well, the one we were hoping to put in is about $40,000, and it's multi-sport. The sport
but I'm
court
just talking
surface.
about hoops, nothing like $40,000.
Oh,
I don't mean just
hoop
surface, I mean just hoops.
Yeah.
Shoot some hoops.
I don't know, it seems like it would be a good idea.
Yeah.
You're talking about the outdoor one? Yeah, that's a good idea.
We did discuss it before, so I was just wondering what happened to the plan, unless it was all encompassing.
The grant that I applied for was Tennis Canada. I don't think they would cough up for hoops as well, but that would be something we could apply for. Okay, any other comments? We should move along. Okay, good, thank you for that. Okay, the last item, I think, of correspondence is regarding the section 219 covenants. This is a letter from Gary Smurfett, and thank you for that, Gary. So section 219 covenants are commonly found on many real estate developments in British Columbia, as they're used by municipalities and regional districts, the Crown or the province, as tools to ensure the development proceeds on certain terms and conditions, like restrictions on the number of homes that can be built. Alternatively, these covenants can be used to ensure that obligations are placed on current and future property owners, hillside development covenants, wildfire covenants, flooding covenants. Recently, section 219 covenants have also been utilized by municipalities and land conservancies to protect environmental sensitive wetlands, islands, and foreshore areas. So that's what, I just wanted to clarify what exactly a section 219 covenant is. So Councillor Shukin, do you wish to speak to this?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. And I just want to go back to Gary's first call to not ignore his recommendations and questions and suggestions. And we're not. I believe all of council shares a concern that Bilston Creek and eventually Woody's Lagoon is protected. And in doing that, we also understand our rights and of course our obligations with the Section 219 covenant. Gary raised some really great points in his letter and a few interesting areas for action. I just wanted to mention that there is action underway. So it was way back in January that I drafted a set of questions and issues, and that came after a discussion with council on this. And the questions were directed at clarifying our rights and obligations with the covenant. Now, staff has had these, and we're going to get together in the next few weeks and sift through some of the questions, understand which have to go to legal counsel and which can be addressed by our engineer as well. So regarding those questions, and I had the benefit of some earlier discussions with Gary. And so, for example, the question about who is responsible for the stormwater detention ponds once title begins to be diffused over the whole area as people pick up ownership of the lots. That's a very good question, a very important one from Metchosin. So that is part of the set of questions I've got with staff right now. The bigger one too is what role do we have in influencing the design of the overall system? Gary's provided some direction and thoughts in that as well. Personally, I'm concerned about testing and ensuring system performance once it's up and running, and who knows when that will be. But that's really the critical thing. Now, I just should be set some realistic expectations. It depends on what kind of advice we get back from our lawyers and what we're able to, that may influence what we can share with the public, but our goal will be to share as much as possible with residents. My sense is that Gary's big idea here is to see if there's an opportunity for a combined wetland stormwater retention facility inside. To me, that's an interesting opportunity that we have to keep open. So, one thing, of course, the Bufferland Working Group will hopefully be up and running by April, and the focus is much broader than the retention ponds, but it's bound to come up for discussion as well. So there's a lot of activity actually underway right now. So thank you.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, you said you'd like to see testing. Do you mean quality and quantity or just quantity flow?
Well, it would have to be, well, there's two things, of course, because the point that's mentioned in the covenant is that, so I'm not sure if it is raised in the covenant, but the goal and what was talked about at the land swap was to maintain the flows of Metchosin Creek. They should not be changed by the development. So that's the quantity thing, but of course quality is a really important one in terms of what eventually finds its way into the ocean. So thanks, both of them.
And another question that I have, what about baseline data? We don't really have pre-development, do we? Or do we have data before the trees started to come down?
So
and that would be baseline data.
Yeah, so the stormwater, there's a monitoring station that's been set up there now. It has been in place for maybe 2 years, getting on close to 2 years, I think. There is rumor that there has been ongoing testing of Bilston Creek for quite a number of years, but that data is apparently with Langford. So there are some intrepid folks with the Bilston Creek Watershed Protection Association who I think are going to be looking closer at that.
Okay.
But we have to find kind of where those data sources are.
Okay, that's a good point, because maybe that data from the Bilston Creek that has been historically stored in Langford can be used to extrapolate. Yeah. Okay, possibly. I forgot about that. Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Gray.
Just a question through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Shukin. Is this kind of material that we'll send to the working group, or is this what council should be dealing with? I think these are good points that Gary's raised for us to consider, and to what you said, that the working group will be a little ways off yet. So we'll dig into this now and then transfer it to the working group, or do we hold on to it at council, or what's going to happen with these
Well,
questions?
it has to all go back to council for sure. Yeah, and then again, I think we want to share as much information publicly as we can, and it's to be useful in terms of seeing if there is an opportunity to collaborate, so, yeah.
Okay. And then it seems, just following on that it may be that we should have in the budget some money for more engineer time, to work through these issues for us. So that'll maybe come up tomorrow. I can raise it there.
Okay, anything else? No? And certainly item number 1, to obtain a legal opinion, would be done by us, not the working group. I would imagine we could get that ball rolling now, and the committee is not that far off really, in April. So we could probably entertain a resolution on that one tonight. Anybody else would like to comment? So another thing that came to mind, when you are meeting with the municipal staff, you'll also be including Councillor Donaldson. She's on the, you're both on the working group?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Great.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments? Anybody else have any comments? No? Okay, what about, so all 3 of these then would be moved to the working group, with the exception of number 1, or not, Councillor Shukin?
I don't believe at this point there's a need for action specific to the letter and what we do and move it. I will look closer at Gary's questions and bring those when we are going to have a discussion with staff about which questions can be answered by engineers and which need to be sent to legal counsel.
Okay.
So I'm going to look at Gary's questions further, but I don't think we need a motion to do
Okay, and concerning point number 2, could we not ask our interim CAO to reach out to Langford to indicate our concerns of the lack of communication and referrals? I think that would be prudent of us, don't you think?
I don't know how much. I don't feel like I have enough information to know one way or the other whether we have received referrals or not. And a lot of this would have been done, I'm betting, in 2018, 2019 possibly. So again, I think there's more action that will generate or will come out of the conversation with staff.
Okay. Okay, well, let's leave it at that then. And then number 3, present to the owners, they provide Metchosin with engineering environmental standards. Number 4, assuming that the draft is on title and receiving support legal advice, notified the owners of Lot D that they are to halt all construction on Lot D. And number 5, determine how Lot D is subdivided. Metchosin expects the maintenance and operational needs of the stormwater system constructed on Lot A are going to be met by many individual upstream users in Langford. Okay. Okay, so you're satisfied that the working group and you and Council Donaldson along with staff will address some of these. So would you like a motion for legal advice? I think we should probably move that forward with a resolution.
Excuse me.
Councillor
I
Gray?
think we may already have that motion in another format.
I think so, yeah.
We've already had it in January?
Couldn't give you the date, but that's in motion, I believe.
Yeah, I think it is in motion.
Okay.
I might just ask a separate question, and I think you brought to light, Mayor Little, that item number 4, we heard at our last meeting, there was a lot of reports about the activities up there right now, under the construction that's happening, and whether or not that's appropriate, given that we haven't seen the stormwater management plan, we haven't approved it, and all that kind of stuff. So that is a pretty active item that Gary's asking us to look at. So just in terms of timing, sooner the better. I guess we all know that.
No, it's interesting because there's 2 things with the covenant around work that can be done on Section D. And one is, I believe it was no work could be done until there was the water monitoring station set up. And so that station is set up. The other one is that no infrastructure, like roads, home pads or like foundations, whatever, none of that can be done until the stormwater management plan is approved by the district. So I believe what they're doing right now is allowed. They will, that area, without knowing 100% certain, my sense is that that area has been zoned for the type of housing, and the developers have their preliminary layout approval. So they're underway with the approvals that they need to, so.
Thank you.
And we also want to make sure that anything that is done on the buffer lands themselves is approved. So recently there have been some surveying done. I don't think staff was aware that that was done. And so we'd like to have notification, because surveying sort of indicates to me something's going to be done. And rather than wait for them to bring in whatever, if they bring in a bulldozer to do something with whatever they've got an agreement on, I think it would be prudent of us to be proactive.
And I was able to talk to our engineer last week, and I asked him about the marks that many of us have noticed. He had no information about them. He didn't doubt that they were there, but he did say that he had advised the developers that if they were to come into the buffer land, they would have to notify us first of what their intentions were. So that has been given to the developers. There may be a need for a refresher letter stating.
I think that's a good idea. My level of trust is a little low, and so I think it'd be a refresher letter would be a respectful one, of course, but that would be in order. Okay, so we'll have that sent. That's okay with everybody? Councillor Councillor Shukin, then Donaldson. Go ahead. Finish.
I would. I think that letter might be in order again once we have the sit down with the engineer and the lawyers and all that. And again, just to understand where we're at, I think it's a good idea. And interestingly, this came up in NEASC as well about advising the developers what our expectations are. I think there's a little bit more information that we have to gather before we do that well. So
okay.
That's my sense.
Okay. Good. Thanks for the advice. Councillor Donaldson.
So in regards to them letting us know what they're doing, if we have had some recent surveying, has staff received any information from them as to who those surveyors are, if they're the developers or whatever, what the intent is?
I don't know. Sue Lynn, do you know who did the survey?
I'll have to check with the engineer. No,
Okay, he didn't know, did he? Yeah, our engineer didn't know. But I'm sure it was just a telephone call away to Langford to ask that question. Yeah. Okay, any other comments? Have we sufficiently addressed the correspondence, you think?
I think so.
Okay.
I will keep it close at hand and again build what Gary's provided here into further discussions that we're going to have. So.
Okay, that's great. And thank you, Gary Smurfett, for your letter. And this is great guidance, and thank you for that. Okay, so where are we? Is that the last item of the night? It is. Okay, so with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Question period.
Oh yeah, we have 45 minutes left for questions. Okay, does anybody want to ask a question? If so, come to the mic and state your name and your street, please.
Avril Yoakum, Windfall Road. This is the first I've noticed that correspondence has been heavily discussed, which is great. But I also notice, and I'm not sure which meeting, Bill Cave wrote a letter, correspondence. It wasn't addressed at all.
Okay, that was about his proposal for the fire hall.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, let's bring that back, Avril.
Thank you. Do I, or
no?
You want me to nudge you?
No, you can nudge me all you like, but I'll make sure.
Yeah, I'd like to see that, and it may have been late at night. I'm not sure, but I know Bill turned to me and said, "Why did I bother?"
Okay.
So I thought, yeah.
Yep. Will you entertain that on your protective service agenda?
Sure.
Yeah,
Thank
okay,
you.
great, we'd be happy to. Okay, anybody else have any questions?
Bonnie River, Neil Road. I'm not sure if you know, but for some time, there has been a water flow measuring, I guess, piece of equipment you could call it, on Neil Road at 1160, I think it is, 1160 or 1165, right at the culvert there. It's been in effect for quite some time.
Like how long?
Well, at least my gut feel is 4 or 5 years.
Okay, maybe.
So that would be pre-development.
Okay.
So that's one part of it. The other part of it is last summer, it was a very high, I think it was summer, fall, there was a very high flow, and it was, I think my neighbor quoted me something like 3 feet going through the culvert. And that's right where that meter is. So that was just recent. So you've got recent and you've got prior.
Okay,
Just wanted
great.
you to know.
Thank you for that. Did you know about that meter?
I did because Councillor Donaldson mentioned it to me.
Okay, super, thank you. This is all important for us, so gathering facts. Thank you. Anybody else? Oh yeah, Councillor Donaldson.
So to that, that is at 1165 on Neil Road. There's one also at on Metchosin Creek. That is Metchosin Creek, but this is the other end of Metchosin Creek at Happy Valley near Flesh Road. There's one there, and then there's one at Glen Forest. I don't know if all 3 of those are still being monitored, because the previous council before you and Sherry were elected decided to not pay for that anymore. So I don't know if it's Langford that still takes care of those ones, or who's doing it, or if they're just boxes. The boxes are all 3 of them are still there.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for council?
Good evening, Council. Johnny Carline, Cliff Drive. My question is about the new policy on respectful behaviour, and I congratulate you for a very comprehensive policy. It's admirable. But I have a question of the form of have you thought of, and if not, what do you think of? And these are the fact that there are inevitably going to be circumstances that come up which, despite the comprehensiveness of the policy, you haven't anticipated. And you may want to make some provision in there to give you the ability, notwithstanding all the other provisions of the policy, to deal with these. There are 2 specific things that I want to draw attention, both concerning the confidentiality issue. One is if an employee is guilty of a sufficiently serious breach of the policy that the discipline goes to the point of termination. The question arises as to whether you will pass that information along to other prospective employers. And I recall a case in school boards where a person was eventually found to have horribly abused young children, and he'd been twice moved on from previous school boards for similar but less serious offences of that kind, and they hadn't passed on the information because of their policies on confidentiality, and kids suffered as a result. So obviously you're not into that kind of situation, but you may want to consider how you would deal with that if someone has seriously breached the policy and is now moving on to other prospective employers. How confidential would you be? And the second one, and I congratulate you for including yourselves in the policy, that's highly appropriate, and also the recognition that in the remedies should it be unfortunate that any councillor in the future breach the policy. The remedies are much more limited. You can't terminate or fire one of your colleagues as much as occasionally one might like to. But what you can do is as you've noted, you can censor or sanction those. But the merit of that is, of course, the ability to terminate a job of an inappropriate councillor or elected official is through the electorate. And if you keep that sanction and censure in camera, confidential, then the effectiveness of that is lost. Again, I want to stress that I totally agree that all the rest of it should be kept confidential, the allegations, the process, the investigation, da-da-da-da. But when you've got to the point of terminating an employee because of a serious breach, or censoring or sanctioning a member of council because presumably again a serious breach, would you consider reconsider how you would deal with that in terms of confidentiality? And I don't expect an answer tonight. I just raised a suggestion.
Okay. Okay, so that may be questions for the Privacy Commissioner or for our legal counsel as well. Sue-Lynn, did you want to comment on that?
Just that there's a code of conduct bylaw that's going to be following that's going to speak to more specific to council than the respectful policy.
Yeah, so just for everybody to hear that, so we have, as a council, committed to refining our code of conduct. That has just come through. We haven't, I think it was this afternoon, it was emailed to us for first perusal, and we will look at that and then hopefully adopt a more comprehensive code of conduct for council members with ramifications there. I'm not sure about the in-camera, what can be released to the public, and that would be a question for, as I say, the Privacy Commissioner and for our legal counsel, and perhaps the Ombudsperson office could offer some suggestions as well. Okay. Okay. Yes.
Where are we in relation to replacing our fire hall?
So where are we in relation to replacing our fire hall?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Epp, did you want to take this, or did you want me to speak to it?
Well, earlier, we approved the feasibility study, and that's kind of the next step. We have gotten the studies from the geotech and the hazard and the structure. There's 3 of them anyway, but we've had the studies done through the working group, and now it's time to call in the professionals to see exactly, get us more specifics about exactly what we can do and costs and so on.
Okay. So this feasibility study will also take into consideration the work that the fire chief has already done on a needs assessment. And so what I envision and what I'd like to see is a campaign to replace the fire hall in whatever the feasibility study has suggested. I'd like to see a great big huge thermometer put in the district where we are in our fundraising. We do have the Growing Communities Fund. We could possibly, we haven't discussed it yet, but it's for infrastructure. We could use part of that. We haven't discussed it yet, but I'd like to see that kind of a thermometer gauging how many contributions we have. It's a community building event, and it allows everybody to weigh in with not only their suggestions, but with their bank accounts as well. So, and this is definitely needed, but we're at the early phases. Any other questions, Kathy? That was Kathy Saluk on Neff Road.
I just think it should be a big priority. And, given what our fire chief and our paid firefighter does for all of our community, like, there isn't even office assistants. It's crazy. What we expect them to do in this whole community, I think there needs to be more attention paid to that.
More attention paid to the firefighters and the fire chief,
yeah,
including an office assistant.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions? We have about 35 minutes left.
It's okay, it's early.
I do. My name is Nancy Powell, and I live at 1020 Liberty Drive, and I raise rabbits for food. And I just would like to remind everybody about the fiasco that happened at the university with their rabbits. And if you don't know what happened is they took them all up to the Cowichan Valley and then they escaped from the rabbit refuge, and then they were shot. And I would like to suggest that we take a hardcore position and eat them because they're very tasty. And this is a farming community. And yeah, they're really cute when they're small, but they do incredible damage. And we have to ovary up and eat them. They're good.
Okay,
Thank you.
I didn't get your last name, Ann.
Powell, Powell.
On Liberty.
On Liberty Drive.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Ann, for your comments. Katie? Come to the mic, okay?
Katie at William Head. I've eaten rabbit and they're yummy. I've also had a pet rabbit that was totally indoors and he was wonderful. She rather was wonderful. But I don't think we can have it as a public thing of we'll get these rabbits and then we'll eat them, because unlike the food crops and the agricultural things, there's no health monitoring as to, we can say that this is a non-diseased product that we're selling. So it's not very realistic. But what people do on their private property with rabbits and what they feed their families is their business.
Okay, thank you for that, Katie.
Barb Sawatsky, Kavir Road. I've been talking to sheep farmers lately and the number of cougars that are in our community. Conservation doesn't seem to be doing a lot about it, and I'm just wondering if the district office could get hold of conservation and ask for some signs put up. Cougar in area, they are going in the corridor, the Galloping Goose corridor. One of the farmers lost 14 sheep, or 14 lambs one night. They weren't consumed, they were just killed and left. So the mother is teaching the cubs to hunt. But I'm really worried about some of the kids that I see on their bikes on the trails, and people, whether old or young, walking their dogs. I think it's becoming quite a dangerous situation, not just for the sheep, but for pets as well. So.
Yeah, thank you for that. I have had conversations with the BC Conservation Officer advocating that we need more resources in Metchosin, particularly on the weekends. And this was prompted by calls from the Prairie Bay Sheep Farm. Lorraine had called me, not last weekend, but the weekend before. I think we're almost at 40 lambs that have been lost between John and Lorraine's sheep and Monique Anasty's sheep. There's also been 2 human encounters, not just seeing the cougar, but aggression displayed by the cougar to the human. I relayed that to the Chief Conservation Officer. Letters were written last Thursday and Friday to that effect. And we continue to advocate for more resources. Oh, and I also I had a conversation with Mitzi Dean and Randall Garrison last week about this.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So,
great.
that being said, there's limited resources. And what Lorraine said to me was, we're either going to be a cougar sanctuary or a farming community, and we can't be both.
And that goes for bears too. She said we can be a wildlife community or a farming community.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for bringing that to our attention, and I'll continue advocating on behalf of the farmers of Metchosin.
Lisa Gee, Kangaroo Road. Well, we're still talking about the rabbits. I just wanted to, again, applaud this council for taking some action on that, because it is a long time coming. Now that it's come forward, that it's a 15-day action plan, I would also ask council to review the results in a few months and see if it's something that needs to be reviewed. I would be concerned that that any dent is going to be helpful, but it may be a dent as opposed to an eradication. So it may be something that needs to be sort of ongoing over the year. And also to suggest that if council can't approve that they be eaten, that maybe they be donated to Wild Ark, who could probably use them for food.
For rapture. Okay.
They're always looking for more donations there.
Okay.
Or possibly suggest that the cougars eat them instead.
Okay, thank you for that. I was wondering, perhaps we could ask staff to reach out to the business community, the owners of the Metchosin Cafe and yourself and others in the district regarding, just to notify them. I would ask Councillor Gray, but he's declared a conflict of interest. We could actually punt that to another council member to liaise with the business owners. Do I have any volunteers? Councillor Donaldson. Okay.
I can talk to the business owners for sure.
Okay, so once you get details from Sue Lynn Tarnowski, you can relay that to the business owners. Great. Okay.
Gary Smurfett, Gilbert Drive in Elbert Head area. We have had a visit from the cougars up there, and in support of them, I have to say, two neighbors who had the cougars come through their property 2 weeks ago were very pleased to see them, because they removed all the rabbits that people had dumped, pet rabbits that were flocking up there over Chapel Heights. And they're not there now, those pet rabbits. And they saw the results. So there's good and bad with everything, I think.
Yeah, there is. I think the rabbits are moving pretty quick and hiding for the cougars, though. We've had lots of cougars here, but our rabbit population doesn't seem to be diminished.
In regards to the rabbits at the hospital, my wife worked at the hospital at that time, and she said that they tried trapping them, which seemed wasted money. The rabbits were actually going right under the foundations. They ended up bringing in a private contractor with air rifles who started early in the morning and slowly killed them all off. And that ended it in that area, until some other idiot brings in a bunch more and drops them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do I have any other questions? No. Okay. With that,
I just have one comment I want to make in regards to the conservation officers. So I was we have a flock of sheep. Our lambs are just born. They're about a month old right now, and fortunately we haven't had an issue yet. We have had these animals going through our property, just because I know the horses are behaving differently. But a week ago, when there seemed to be a peak of these killings, at my own riding lesson in the back of Windfall Bennett Road area, there were 3 conservation officers out. They've been out all morning, and they brought the dogs out. So they are doing their best. They, like everybody else, are understaffed, and they were bringing in officers from up island. So they cover a large area. When we lost lambs and sheep to bear kill a couple years back, they're coming from way up island before they even get here. And sometimes it is too late to call the dogs, and so they're doing their best, and we got to do ours, I guess. The farmers are doing theirs with electric fencing and whatnot, but people with garbage out, tracking bears, that sort of thing. The cats, where I'm at now, we've got more eagles than we ever had. And never, in all 30 years, we've never had bear kills until the clear cut. So it's a change of climate, it's a change of development on our borders, it's a lot of different things. But yeah, the conservation officers are doing their best.
okay. Well said. Thank you. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Schuken, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, everybody.